Midwinter and El Nino is still on everybody's mind. The southeast had a little break from the persistent heavy rain, but there is still a lot of winter and early spring left. What can we expect? Chris and I will talk about that forecast during the January edition of the Water Resources Outlook. Let's go straight to the past 30-day rainfall. Here is the departure from normal for the last 30 days. Very little of the area has seen below normal rainfall. However, in parts of the Tombigbee Basin in Alabama and Mississippi, we have seen some spots below normal. The other area is North Florida, where we have been close to normal for the most part and only slightly below normal in spots. Otherwise, most of the southeast has seen above normal rainfall for this period. So how does this match up with what the Climate Prediction Center forecasted from last month? Here was the January forecast made on December 17th, and other than some dryness in northern Florida, it looks pretty good, following a pretty traditional pattern of wetness in the southeast. And really, South Florida has seen some above normal rainfall at this time, and that is where we would expect the most rainfall. The drought monitor is almost all white, without any dryness at all, except for the area we spoke of in North Florida and along the Georgia coast. Still some lingering dryness there that should be gone before the end of February. Stream flows are very high across much of the southeast, with the Tombigbee River Basin being the one area that is running a little lower than normal. Other things to consider: most of our reservoirs in the southeast are at or above their glide curve and are trying to push water down to the coasts before more rainfall moves into the area. We are working closely with our partners and in the Corps of Engineers and the power companies in the area to move that water with as little negative impact on the rivers and communities along them as we can. And now let's go to Chris, who will talk a little bit about our near-term and mid-term weather forecasts.
All right, let's take a look at what we can expect weather-wise into the near future. We're going to begin the period with an area of low pressure moving generally west to east across the area. By Saturday morning, we're expecting the system to be in the coastal North Carolina area. And as we get towards the end of the short-term period, Sunday morning, we're expecting the low to be off the coast now and high pressure moving in behind the system. This is going to set the stage for the midterm period. We'll start with that area of high pressure across the southeast U.S. And then as we go through this next work week, we'll see a cold front move into the area. By the time we get to Wednesday, we should see an area of low pressure developing in response. And by the end of the midterm period, we're expecting right now that front to be across the Florida Peninsula, low off the coast, high pressure moving in behind that low. So for the 7-day precipitation forecast, we can expect precipitation across the southeast, a minimum of sorts in Florida, though we're still expecting precip down there. And as we just saw, the majority of this precip is associated with two events with a bit of a lull in the middle, which generally corresponds to the beginning of this next work week. Looking at the long-term period, we can expect above normal precipitation amounts across the southeast, and this is generally keeping with the trend that we've been seeing. We're still in this El Nino winter where we tend to expect above normal precipitation amounts.
Thanks, Chris. Now let's go from the midterm to a more long-term outlook. With a continuing strong El Nino, the February forecast is classic El Nino, and that is why we are still so concerned about the reservoirs in the area. We are still looking at potential heavy rain for much of the southeast during February, and this should continue for the rest of winter into spring. These two outlooks look very similar. It doesn't look like we'll be out of the woods with chances of heavy rain until April sometime. However, once we get to April, things should start to become more normal as we transition from spring to summer and out of El Nino to more neutral conditions by that time. Our next concern will be as we get through the rest of the year and La Nina begins to become a concern. We will start to address that sometime in April. So the bottom line, in the short term, the wet pattern continues, with small breaks, as we've seen a little bit during January. We could have a couple more breaks in in the rest of January. However, it's still looking to become more wet soon as we get to the end of the month and into February. As for the long term, El Nino will continue to dominate the long-term forecast throughout the southeast. It will be the dominant weather driver through the rest of the winter into spring. And you know, the message that we're trying to send out right now is that this is not complicated. We are expecting more rainfall. We are expecting flooding through the rest of this season. We expect that after this season, these will probably get a little bit longer as things maybe become a little bit more complicated as we move from El Nino to La Nina and some other things are going on. Our next water resources outlook will be recorded on the week of February 22nd. Thank you all for listening to our water resources outlook for January. Remember, if you have any questions or concerns, you can contact us at todd.hamill@noaa.gov or Chris at christopherschaefer@noaa.gov. Thank you, and we will be talking to you next month.